All right, let's dive deep into happiness today. We're exploring this awesome interview with Gawdat. He was like the big guy, chief business officer at Google X. And this interview is from Dr. Ranganchatterjee's YouTube channel.
Yeah, Mo's story is super interesting, right? He had it all: money, success, family, the whole dream life thing.
The whole 9 yards.
Exactly. And yet he was unhappy.
It really makes you think. So he kind of came up with this equation for happiness. Happiness equals events minus expectations.
Yeah, it sounds simple.
But it's pretty profound when you really think about it.
It is. It shows how much our expectations can impact us, even when good things are happening.
Totally. He gives this example of buying a luxury car. You finally get your dream car, but there's a tiny flaw, like a little stitching problem or something.
Right. And most people would still be over the moon about the car.
For sure. But if your expectation was absolute perfection, no flaws whatsoever.
That little imperfection suddenly becomes a huge deal. The event, getting the car, doesn't live up to the expectation. And this applies to so many things in life.
Oh, yeah. Careers, relationships, even a birthday party.
Totally.
Like, we set ourselves up for disappointment sometimes. Have you ever experienced that? Where your expectations just totally didn't match up with reality.
Ah, damn.
And it kind of steals the joy, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Maya says a big problem is we're constantly bombarded with messages about what we should want, what a perfect life should look like.
It's like this constant advertising.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere, right? Social media, magazines, even advice from friends and family. It all adds up to this feeling that we're not enough unless we have this, this, and this.
It creates this sense of never having enough. Like you're always
Oh.
chasing the next thing.
Totally. Mo's personal experience with this is really eye-opening. He talks about a time when he could afford basically anything he wanted. Multiple luxury cars, this massive villa, anything.
The works.
Exactly.
Right.
And instead of feeling fulfilled, he felt empty.
He even said he felt like he was living 62% of his life alone, even surrounded by people. It's like all that time chasing more left him disconnected. Disconnected from himself and from others.
So I guess the question is, what are the things you feel you need to be happy?
Yeah, what are those things? Are they truly yours, or are they kind of influenced by all this external pressure?
Right. And this leads to something Mo says it's a little provocative. He says we choose to be unhappy.
Wait, are we all just walking around choosing to be miserable? That sounds a bit harsh, especially if you're going through a rough patch.
Yeah, I know. But what he's getting at is the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. It's part of life.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Suffering, though, that's optional.
It's like we choose to replay those hurtful comments, past mistakes or failures over and over in our heads.
Exactly.
Mo calls it the Netflix of unhappiness. We're binge watching our own misery.
And that's where the power of choice comes in, right? We can choose to focus on a different story.
Absolutely. We can choose to learn and move on.
And this is where Mo's personal story takes a really powerful turn. He lost his son, Ali, a medical error.
It's an unimaginable loss, but it's really amazing how he responded to it.
Even with that level of pain, he chose not to give in to despair. Instead, he focused on keeping his son's memory alive.
Finding meaning and purpose in sharing his son's wisdom with the world.
It's really a testament to human resilience.
It is. And it speaks volumes about the power of choice, even in the darkest moments.
It makes you wonder how we can find happiness in truth, even when that truth is really hard to accept.
Yeah, it's a big question. For Mo, it seems the answer was in keeping Ali's teachings alive. And it's incredible how profound Ali's insights were, especially for someone so young.
Yeah, I mean, he believed the only real change we can make is within ourselves and our immediate circle.
That's powerful. He taught Mo about living in alignment with yourself, pursuing your passions, and finding happiness in just being rather than constantly doing.
It really resonates, doesn't it?
It does. It's like true happiness isn't something we find out there in the world. It's something we cultivate within.
Through our choices, our perspectives, and our relationships.
Speaking of relationships, Mo's views on love are, well, unconventional. He's not buying into that whole happily ever after fairy tale.
He sees love as a constantly evolving journey, full of these falling in love moments throughout the relationship.
Multiple times within the same
Yeah,
relationship.
exactly. It's not about clinging to a static ideal, but about embracing change and rediscovering each other as you both grow.
He actually describes his own marriage as a series of 6 distinct relationships, each one with its own phase of falling in love and navigating change together.
Wow.
And even though he and his wife are no longer together, he still talks about her with so much love and respect. It shows how love doesn't always fit into those neat little boxes.
There are so many different forms of love, and those forms can evolve over time.
Absolutely. Mo believes a lot of us are sold this limited view of love,
And it sets us up for unrealistic expectations.
which ultimately leads to unhappiness.
Right.
So I got to ask you, what are your expectations for romantic love?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Are they realistic? Are they aligned with what you truly value?
And maybe even more important, do you truly love and accept yourself? Mo believes self-love is a foundation for all healthy relationships.
It makes sense, right? If we don't value ourselves, how can we attract and maintain authentic connections with others?
Exactly.
And that brings us to one of those most interesting ideas, the economics of love. He says our value in the relationship marketplace is determined by supply and demand.
So if we're trying to be everything to everyone,
We lower our value. It's like trying to sell a rare vintage car alongside thousands of mass-produced ones.
yeah.
The people who would truly appreciate that special car won't find it in all that noise.
I like that analogy.
So his advice is to be authentically you, to advertise your true self.
Without trying to please everyone.
Exactly. Because when you do that, the people who are truly drawn to who you are, they'll recognize your value and connect with you on a deeper level.
Makes sense.
It's a reminder that we don't have to be everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
We just need to find those people who savor our unique flavor. And that's beautiful, I think.
It really is. But we've only just touched the surface of Mo's insights here.
There's so much more to uncover.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about the power of authenticity, and it gets even more powerful when you think about how it applies to grief and loss. Mo's story about losing Ali, it's so moving.
But also really inspiring.
It would be so easy to just get lost in despair after something like that.
Yeah.
But he chose to find happiness, not by ignoring the pain, but by reframing his expectations and focusing on what was true.
It's amazing. He chose to honor the time he had with Ali by sharing his son's wisdom.
Keeping his memory alive.
It's such a profound example of finding meaning, even in the face of grief.
It really is. And it all comes back to that happiness equation, right?
Happiness equals events minus expectations.
Exactly. Faced with losing Ali, it would have been so easy to cling to the expectation that, well, this shouldn't have happened. And that would just fuel anger and resentment.
Exactly.
But instead, he shifted his expectation to, this is the truth of what happened.
And as hard as that is,
It's incredibly hard.
it allowed him to find peace.
And even happiness within that truth.
Powerful stuff.
It is. It reminds us that we always have a choice in how we respond
To anything.
to anything. We can let negativity take over, or we can look for those little glimmers of light.
The lessons.
Yeah, the opportunities for growth that exist, even in the most difficult situations.
And, Mo's not saying we should pretend everything is fine or bottle up our feelings.
No, not at all.
He's saying we can actively choose to focus on the good
To find meaning,
and focus on what we can actually control,
even when life throws those curveballs,
because they will come.
they will come. What I find really striking is that he doesn't think the happiest people are the ones who've avoided pain or hardship. He thinks true happiness comes from embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the joy and the sorrow, the good times and the bad, and finding peace within it all.
That's beautiful. It's about living a life that's in line with your values, your passions.
Your true self.
Even when things are messy, challenging, or heartbreaking.
It's about recognizing that life is a journey,
Not a destination.
not a destination. And that journey is going to have ups and downs, twists and turns, moments of joy and moments of sorrow.
For sure.
The key is learning to navigate those moments with grace, with resilience, with an open heart.
Choosing happiness isn't about denying reality. It's about accepting the truth.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah, and finding a way to move forward.
And it's about remembering that we always have a choice in how we see things, how we respond to things.
Absolutely.
We have the power to create our own happiness.
Yeah.
But how do we put that power into practice?
That's where this idea of a happiness gym comes in.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's not about magically getting rid of all problems and challenges. It's about shifting our mindset,
Okay.
reframing those expectations,
Yeah.
and developing habits that support our well-being.
So instead of wishing for a problem-free life, we're building up those happiness muscles to help us navigate the ups and downs that are going to come.
Exactly. And the first step, according to Mo, is becoming aware of the stories we tell ourselves.
The stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, are those stories empowering us?
Or are they holding us back?
Are they even true?
Or are they based on fear and assumptions? It's like taking a look at our mental Netflix queue, right?
I love that analogy.
Are we stuck replaying those same old unhappy dramas?
Or are we choosing something more uplifting, more inspiring?
Something more aligned with the reality we want to create.
Mo encourages us to question everything.
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 Wow.
The assumptions we've inherited, the expectations we have, the stories we believe about ourselves, what we're capable of.
He uses a great example about language. He says in Arabic, a lot of words have multiple meanings depending on the context. It reminds us to look beyond the surface
Think about different perspectives.
and be open to the possibility that our first interpretation might not be the whole story.
It's about being open,
Yeah.
being willing to question and explore.
And that can be so freeing, right?
It is. It helps us break free from those beliefs that are holding us back.
And step into a more joyful way of being.
Exactly.
So how do we start building this happiness gym into our lives? What are some exercises we can do?
Most suggests starting simple.
Okay, simple.
Spending time in nature,
Love that.
connecting with loved ones,
Good one.
doing things that bring us joy. These are all ways to work out those happiness muscles.
It's so basic, but we often forget about those things, don't we?
We do.
It's a reminder that happiness doesn't have to be this complicated thing. It's often found in those small, everyday moments.
Totally agree. And it's about being present in those moments, really savoring them, not just letting them pass us by.
And that's where things like gratitude and mindfulness come in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They help us tune in to the good things, even when things are tough.
The more we work out those happiness muscles, the stronger they become. It gets easier to navigate those challenges
To reframe those negative thoughts.
and choose joy, even when life gets hard.
Remember, happiness isn't a destination. It's a way of traveling, a way of being in the world,
It's about awareness, acceptance.
and a deep connection to ourselves and to the present moment.
So much amazing stuff from Mo. What's really sticking with you? What feels most insightful or maybe even challenging?
You know, it really hit me how Mo frames happiness as a skill, like something we can actually develop, that whole happiness gym idea.
Yeah.
We have to actively work those muscles.
Right. We often think of happiness as something that just happens to us
Yeah,
or something we achieve once we hit certain milestones.
exactly, like checking off boxes.
Yeah. But Mo say no. We have to own it, cultivate it. It takes practice.
Intentional practice. So what does that even look like, dedicating time to working out our happiness?
What would that look like for you?
Well, Mo says start simple. Spending time outdoors with people we love, doing things we enjoy.
The basics.
Right. Those simple things really work those happiness muscles.
It's so easy to forget about the simple things. We overcomplicate everything.
We do. And it's about being present, you know?
Yeah.
Savoring those moments, not just letting them slip by.
And that's where gratitude comes in. Mindfulness.
Exactly. It helps us tune in, focus on what's good, even when life is throwing punches.
And Mo also talks a lot about questioning our assumptions, our expectations.
He says the world's full of contradictions.
Things aren't always black and white.
He uses this example about language, right? One word can have all these different meanings.
Depending on the context.
Exactly. Like, we need to approach life with an open mind, question things, be willing to see different perspectives.
That openness is so important. Challenging our own thinking can be so freeing.
Totally. It breaks us free from those limiting beliefs, helps us find a more joyful way of being.
So if you could create your own happiness gym routine, what would it look like? What practices, what activities would bring you contentment, resilience, inner peace?
Lots of things. Spending time in nature, really nurturing relationships, exploring creativity.
You get to choose what works best for you.
Exactly. And this journey, the journey to happiness, it's ongoing, right? It's not about reaching some finish line.
That's it, the practice.
Choosing joy every day, cultivating that resilience, embracing who you are.
Mo's insights are such a good reminder that we're all capable of happiness, no matter what our circumstances are. It's not about achieving something. It's not about having more things.
It's about aligning our expectations with reality, cultivating self-love, being authentic.
And seeing the world through a lens of gratitude, compassion, and possibility.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep choosing happiness.
It's worth it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as enriching and inspiring as we have. And remember, the power to choose happiness, it's always there, within you.